Yes. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. I, and it's been a while. I haven't been on Power Apps for a couple of weeks now. And during that time, I was thinking about how to make sure this presentation is in a way that for those without experience in Power Apps to be able to comprehend it, because I just didn't want to just keep going and click and click and click and everything just works. I want to be able to do it where we run into issues sometimes and we have to do some work to fix it. So, if you recall, the last thing we did was when we tried to, when I mentioned that was for this recording. Remember the last time we imported Excel data into Dataverse and were able to create an application against it, right? Then later we create another screen. I believe we had we have to connect to Dataverse, but that's great because I mean importing Excel and then the Power Apps is able to ensure that it goes into a Dataverse environment, create Dataverse table. But now, how about us actually doing the creation ourselves? Let us create table or tables that we're going to use in our application. And again, when you want to build a house, you want to do something, the foundation is pretty important. So we start working on. So we're going to do first, I'm going to break this into two stages, one for today, and then the next one we're going to do the design the screen first of student, which I'm showing you right now on the screen. We're going to design something similar to this, but let me run it to let you see how this is actually going to work briefly. Here, I do start here and I can do courses. If I click on this, it should take me back. That one person doesn't have any class, but learn about these guys and I do, because here it created something for me. And suppose I want to add additional class, like say biology, and let me click add here and it gave me a room to do it. And I can say biology, and I'm going to call this, this will be automatic. All right, this is going to come automatically. And I'm going to, again, I'm not visually the people who can do something more prettier, but I just want to prove something here. BIO, I'm giving a name here. We can, even though this course session too, this is something that we can put in a different table, separate table, and we'll talk about that later. The 1003, let me just, I can call one thing, doesn't matter here. I'm going to go to 4, let's say it's a spring, and 2026. So I'm going to save it. Okay, you can see here, they give me a notification that it's been saved, right? Now look at this. If I want to delete this, what I just entered. Okay, before I do that, let's go say I'll go back and let me go back again to you see it's still there. Then I can delete this and it's going to go automatically. But again, remember, anytime you're deleting a record, you send some confirmation anyway, but it's okay. We're going to develop it there. But I just want to show you quickly where we're going, right? We're going to push this way require some coding which we're not there yet in terms of, I'll show you a few things initially, but the next time we're going to develop this particular screen, we're going to be using some coding. So, but I'm going to hold on to that. So now let's go back again. What I want to show you here is before I started doing this, I had to do design the tables to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to be, things like that. So I just wanted to give you, tell you exactly what is going on behind the scene. I remember um, that anytime you're trying to develop an app, it's always good to at least think through it first. What you're going to do? Do you want to? So in this case, when it comes to Microsoft and Power Apps, right? Microsoft doesn't have entity relationship diagram um, designer, which I was hoping they will have, but it didn't. But I'm certain that Microsoft will get there someday soon. And the reason why I believe we need something on that is it will make it easier for you to start first looking at things before you, instead of just trying to create tables and start thinking, design them first before you. So what I did now, with in this particular case was I decided to use a free product called draw.io, which we're going to use first here to do to design our screen. I mean, to design our table, right? And because I already had a table called student here, so I'm going to create something else so that I don't want to override this one because I'm using it. I'm going to create something similar, which is going to be student, but I'm going to call something like T student or my student or student underscore test, at least to show you how we design this. And then I will also create the courses table that, because when the student goes to school, you register, you can take as many. So you see that when we start doing our draw.io, all right? So with that said, and you can see I can search by, if I type James, like you can see how this one goes. And let's say I'm trying to Livingston, you can see Livingston, you can see what happened. So again, this is the search window right here too. If let me go back where I have more, like for this one, and I say I'm looking for a particular, let's say fixes, you can see how this is so efficient. You can see how this need. I remind you that all this, you will learn it, don't worry, but not necessarily today because I don't want to take you through so many things. But again, the first we're going to do today will be we'll design the table. We're going to create the tables and we'll create one screen, this particular screen first. Then in our next assignment, in our next lesson, it's going to involve creating this screen, which will require all of this that I'm clicking like back out, all of this will require a little bit of coding or maybe formula, maybe let's call it formula. So that way, because I really want to, uh, I want it to be as short as possible. So, okay, let's me close this. Let me go back now, and I will close this. Go back here. Then I'm now going to go to draw.io. Like I told you earlier, Microsoft doesn't have um, any ERD designer, it is relationship diagram designer. So what we're going to do first, we're going to try to do a table. Right here, to design, we're going to go to, and we can see here we have entity relation. Okay, if you scroll down, yeah, you can see that we have something here, we have this. So, so we're going to start with this ascent of the bed. We're going to use this one here, and I'm going to move it here. And what I'm going to do here, I will start creating the columns. And once I create the columns, then you see here, I'm going to change this to the primary key here. I'm going to call it, and actually, let's start with the table name. I'm going to call this student. Remember that when we start creating this, I'm not going to call it student when I'm using my, when I'm using the, um, excuse me, and I'm actually creating the table in a Dataverse, but I just want to let you see what is going on here. So I'm going to make this student name. I'm going to call it the student name. I will tell you why I'm doing this once we get to Dataverse, because there's a reason why I'm doing this. So now we start creating actually the column that I'm going to use. And since this could, then the second one, this is where we create all of these. So this is the PK, I will explain that. This is the primary key or primary name. We'll use it. Here I've started first name and I can state last name. In some country, they will, instead of calling last name, and call it last name in the United States. Other places, they'll call it surname. So I'm going to, here, I'm going to create a few columns. So before I do that, I like to do double click. You can see here, I'm right clicking and I'm doing this. And I'm going to put all the columns now that will come back and so that to save time. So yeah, as you can see now, I've created all these columns. Remember, I followed the approach by duplicating these, and then now I have all the columns that I will need for student table. Now, I'm going to now create remember I brought that over there, and I'm going to now create the course table, and I'm going to call this course now. Just that's table name, mean that And then I'm going to say course name here, which is, then I will start creating the columns the way I did for a student. And then you see that in 1 second after creating all of them. Remember, I'm using the same approach. Yeah, as you can see here now, I've created the cost table with the column that I will need. But there's one thing though that I want to relate this table to this one. So I'll just put something here like, say, this is a foreign key. So which will be pointing to this in a relation like many of these to one, because a student, one table, a student will register the instances of the course table where you can register for many courses per student. So it's a one to many. So I'm going to come down here looking at all this symbol that this connection, that this will give me something like this one to many. So, and I will definitely put this one here. Like I'm gonna say, okay, I want to connect it to here and this one to here. So now as you can see, it's one to many. And at least visually, I can see exactly what I'm trying to design. So with that said, you can then, of course, you want to save your file what you have created. So somewhere. So it's putting it directly here, but however, I'm putting my download and I can give it a name. Let me, this is the type. I can see, if I can see my student, I can give it something like student. My student. Okay, again, student. Yeah, I can call it student info, right? Yeah, I can do that. I can just say, okay. I basically stored my at least, and again, what to do with the student info, I'm just gonna remember I don't have to already save my file into, this is just for my reference, and I have what I needed here to start creating my table. As I mentioned earlier, I prefer designing my table first, at least to see how visually, to see what I want to change or what I want to make an adjustment, because sometimes when you start creating all these tables in Dataverse, making changes sometimes can be difficult. It depends on which column you're trying to change and how you, especially when you're setting all the properties. So this is how this is done. Now I will turn to creating these tables. Once I create the tables, then as I mentioned, I'll create these two tables, and I will actually put some data just right there first before I can do it on the screen, but I want to do it so you can see how this will pull some information, right? How it does it. So when we want to create a table, I will make sure that I'm not going to call it student because I already have a table that I created that's called student and course. So in order not to override it, but to do a demo how this is creating a table, how they're related, and I'll show you. So right now we're going to go back to this. We're going to go back to the Power App Studio where we continue our. Then we can go to the table. I'm going to Power App Studio now. We're back here. So, and I'll be going to the table. Yeah, so now we're back here. So I'm going to move this off screen here so I can just have it on the side. I can be looking at things because, well, if you don't have a two screen like I do, you can always print the diagram or you memorize all the columns, that's fine. So now I'm going to go back. Like when I do this, this is because I want to go to the table, right? Once I say leave, and once I do that, you can see we'll go back and these are I'm going to click on the environment here. These are the tables. All right, it gives me the table right here. You can see a whole bunch of tables were created, right? But I want to look at the custom, the one that I created. All right, that's very important. I'm going to do this just to start looking at them. You can see all the table that I mentioned earlier that I've created, right? I have student table and I have course table already here, but we want to do our demo. So, and to make this easier, so I'm going to start creating a new table here. And you can see up on this at the top here, I'm going to say new table, right? If I click, but if you click down, you can see create new tables. This will do something I provide you the name. We're not going to do this one. I want to do the advanced properties. So that will give me the ability to be able to look at um the columns, creating the columns, modifying them. We'll talk about this in future, but I just bet in this particular situation, just click this because the create new table will bring something. Then you have AI doing something, or if you want to create a virtual table, which means you will have this table, like say in a list, a SharePoint list, and you can create a table in Dataverse, which is going to map that the data is not residing in Dataverse, it's going to be residing on, say, on SharePoint list, and then the virtual table is mapping to it. That's something that we'll talk in future. But in this particular case now, let's say you do that, then it gave me this. So remember, as I mentioned that I already have a student table um called student. So I don't want to write over. So I'm going to just give this a different name so that to make this a bit easier. So what we're going to do, I'm going to call these, let's call it T student. Let's just call it T student just for the, I can make it T here and I'm going to call it this way. And one of the things you're going to realize is that um, Dataverse is going to plural, give you a plural name of that, but just leave it, don't. Then there's a whole other attachments, a whole bunch of things you can uh, create that allows you to, this future, we'll talk more about this in future, but I want to give it straight now that it allows you to attach some notes and files to your table. And that is something that we can always talk in future. So every of these, just leave them as they are. And here, one thing that you want to do, this one, you want to be careful on this. So what I usually do here, definitely, um, I like to name this, like I'm going to call it, like as I mentioned, like student name, right? But because I call that, I can say the student name, all right? I always like to name this. Remember, name is shown automatically, but I did this for a reason. Just and the maximum number of characters, you click on this. Of course, the name is you don't want it to be too long than this, so you can leave it as it is. It's a business quiet. You also have all kinds of things. Now, one thing that I want you to understand when you here, like I click on it, the primary name comes. Once you create this, though, you may not change. You can't change it. This is where it is important that you you name it. Remember the table that I created says student name. I just add this thing to it, just the T like to make sure similar to the table. I always give the student the table name and then use the name rather than just leave as a name because it makes it easier. And when I'm creating the child table, I'll also be able to use that same name. So, and this is just for me to be able to. So now I'm going to save it, right? I'm going to save it now. So you want to save that first, then I'll start creating the columns. All right. So you can see it gave me so this is the student name. Then I'm going to start adding columns to it, right? I can do it this way. All right. Either way is fine. I can see how this is all, which is, so I do this. And so I'm going to start again. Then it gave me that. So it says the column that I'm going to call the next is first name, right? First name. And one of the things we need to see here, look at all these properties here. The data type is a single line text. There's all kinds of things you can do here. You can see text, if it's a number line, if it's a lookup table, this is where we're going to do lookup column. I mean, you will see that when we create the cost table. But in this case now, it's one single line. There are other options but just leave things as they are. This is the schema name as actually this we're looking at the database. You see the maximum number of characters is 100, which is fine. Oh, it's down. Click. No, give me that thing. I don't know what. Okay, so right. So all this, just leave them as they are for now because you will learn those things once we probably go and start getting to serious. Now, so the behavior is simple. All of this is something that because we're not calculating any. In future, of course, when we start doing a kind of modification to our table, for whatever reason that we're going to be adding in the future, yeah. So you can see now, so I'm going to say save to save that column. So you can see that saving now, and then you can see it's already even leaving room for me to start entering text. So I'm going to, the next one will be the last name, right? Last name. Remember, I'm not changing anything now. I'm still leaving as it is. And I'm saving that, and I'm going to call this one into initial. Like I'm now, remember, I'm now looking at my diagram that I created earlier. Initial, right? Right, same thing. You can again, the separate option, you can change the initial to. I don't think it really matter. I will leave them as they are because rather than trying to change to 2 or 3, that's fine because in the relational database, something will be batch or 2 like we're doing a SQL Server. I mean, no, in Oracle, and you can do a batcher in SQL Server. But again, we're dealing with Dataverse. So Dataverse is relational. So we're creating this. So we're gonna save each time you do that, you're gonna save it. And since every column is going to be in now let me bring this up here so you can see briefly that let me where's the let me bring that up quickly so you can see what we're creating. Anyway, let me keep 1 second there so I can do something. Yeah, I remember I brought this to the screen so you can see now. I'm creating all the column from here, okay, because I already do the diagram, so I was just I move it off screen so that I'm into my second screen so I can be looking at it, and I'll be creating my columns, okay. So I'm going to move that back up. Okay. So you can look now, I already created the first name, last name, the middle initial, and I will keep creating. So, but so I will tell in a few you say I create all, and I'll come back quickly so that it won't, our recording won't be too long. Um, I've created all my column. I stopped momentarily just to so we save time on recording. Now everything that I did was just the same. In other words, the line on is the type of text, the characters, the type of the data type, all of that. So let me check the. Let's try to look at the all the columns. So I'm going to click columns here. So you can see all these other all the columns were created automatically by um, Dataverse, which can be used, right? But I'm looking for the column that was created by me. And the way I would do that is like the publisher. We'll learn about publisher in future. But the publisher, this get created because in the environment that I am. So it's CRA5. So I want to see the column that I created, not all of this, because you can see a whole bunch is created, like created by delegate, created on all of this, or it can be if we're going to be using for something, right? So the one that I created, I'm going to, and again, the arrangement here is not going to be in the order of because it's displaying naming by you can see more or less like an alphabetical order, but it's not the order in which you can see if I click this, it's going to say sort by this, all right? So, but what I want to do now, I want to filter this. So it gave me the CRA5, just you can see. All right, it gave me all the column that I've created. And again, as I mentioned, that all the columns that I've created, this is what is shown here. All right. So again, when you're designing, so you can mention that, I say, as I mentioned here, then what can you do at this point? You can say, all right, I'm going to, um, this is one is a student name is given all of this, right? So you're not, we're not doing anything extraordinary here. So we're not doing this at all. So again, this is for when we're doing our student name, we're gonna do the first name, last name, all of this is right. So now if I go back to here, and it's coming, I can start. Of course, you can see this one is student name. I'll say Joe. Let's say I can add data if I wanted to, right? Joe. I want to put something. Let's say Joe Richard, right? Yeah, why not? So we can say Joe. We tend to. Then I can go Richard. I can go, let's say with the I, and we can start putting data, right? You see street number. Let's see 4123. Then we can keep going, right? Good to keep writing. Of course, we start making sure we can put more, right? See how I'm doing that? Like say 400 and broad east. Um, one of the things that I want you to know too is that when we're doing this, we can move, like you can move the column, which is what you can see here. And you can say east broad street, right? And we can always put apartment number here. Let's just say REPT. Let's just leave that alone. We can do other thing here like we do east west street, northwest. It depends on what you want to do, right? We don't have to the city like New York, right? And say actually why not? Yeah, we can say New York, New York. Remember, we have not set this in countries, the United States. All right, that's United States. All right. So then we can always go to the next one. You can see this is how, let's create another one here. Um, let's create Elizabeth. Elizabeth, let's get Robert. I don't know. Let's put something there, right? No, actually, I want to do this. Not what I want to do. I'm trying to do something there. Little Robert. And we'll say Elizabeth. And Robert. Right. But then we can say, let's just put something there for now. We don't know the initial. And 2000. East. Um, let's put another street here, Main Street. I believe we all have Main Street in every city in the United States, right? Then we can go to Northeast. I don't know. Let's just put something there. And then just put the Columbus. Then there's another thing I didn't put there. I'm going to do that in a minute. I'm just showing this. Ohio. Ohio. Right. One thing that didn't show, you will see that after I created this is the United States, right? Then do you notice in US we have zip code. So if you see here, we don't have I'm just and this so you can do to open this, so that should show you the do we have zip code here? Right, you can see here. We don't have zip code, and I'm looking at this, so we did not. Interesting. That's fine. But I just want to show you how we can let me add again. Let's go back to the so I'm gonna because I'm putting data here. So as you can see, we let's go back here to check our columns again. Remember, um it's always gonna give you this 5. So I'm just trying to so I could look at here. I don't have zip code there, right? Let me just add it. This is what I'm trying to do here though. Remember, I'm trying to do what you call I'm trying to create I'm trying to add you can see here, you can see new columns, right? I'm trying to can do that here. Zip code, I wanted to add that to that zip code, right? So it's still gonna be the single line test and the format is there and simple. We're gonna leave things as it is. I should put that one there. I didn't add it earlier, that's fine. So at least giving you the way you can, if you miss some column, all of that, right? So now you can see that I can change I can do again, try to, my screen is kind of, I want to move this a little bit. So you can see the last one that I got the zip code now. New York is 100. No, this is Columbus. How are we going to do 40? 125. We're gonna give that one. And this one 10025, right? So at least now we have data that we can use. You can see how easy it is to create columns and all of that to make things easier. Now, what we're going to do next is let's go back to tables here, right? Like checking my, again, I don't have to do custom because they will always list, if you click all, they're going to do this, it's going to just give you the name of the table. So we're going to create a new table. I'm going to do this again. We're going to call it, remember what we have, we're going to call it T course because I already have course here. I don't want to, just want to do something there. So again, that's me for my primary column. So I remember that T course. So I like to do this. You can call it anything you want now. So not, I'm just using this to illustrate how you can create this table. And eventually, we're going to be using the course table and to do building our application against it. But in the meantime, I just want to let you see how you can create tables. Now, here, there's all these advanced options, leave everything as it is. So I'm going to, the primary column is very important. You need to be sure that you give it the what it is, right? Just to be sure. So now I'm going to save it. So now that I have saved it, then we're going to create the columns. So the columns are not going to take that long. So I want to be sure that see how it's able to give us the columns and all of that, right? You can see the we can add new columns. We can do to the table the course, right? You can see here. You can click on this. You can see. Then remember that you can also search by just to just to let you know what we have so far, right? You can see this is all we got for now. This is what we got. So we can start creating new columns right here. I can create new, and it's also for the display name, how you want it to be displayed, because now we're going to see course number, right? And I want to make it auto, right? I want this number to come automatically because I just don't want to. So what we're going to do here, we can, it's a single line of test, but I want to make it auto, right? Like you can see the auto number here. So to come automatically, it's showing me the maximum number of digits. I can make it as many as possible. And I can say CN here, prefix, like CN. So any number that I created is going to do, there's always an advanced options that, again, as I mentioned to you, you should leave them as it is for now. Now remember, the schema name for this is with the publisher, the course number. That's how it looks like under the hood, but this is how it displays it to us, so that makes it easier, right? So in this case, I'm going to save it, and you will see how that works in a second. So now we keep adding more columns. So the one I'm going to organize course section. You can see, right? In this case, we're leaving that as the format. It's a text, of course, because remember, you want to make it all kinds of stuff, but single line text and also the format. You can also do something with the format. We'll learn about that in the future. For example, if you say phone, there's a text, you can always say, okay, click that one there. So now we have this. We're going to save this. Then let's look at semester. We're going to do like, we're going to go next column. New column. So we look for semester. Then it's a text, single text, right? Then we're going to look for year. I'm going to make that a text field, all right? Or so you can see we can make a number field. So, but when you display, you have to be like, if you're going to be doing some calculations on year, definitely you want to make it a number, right? You can still do something, converting that to, even if you make it, if you made it a text, if you want to do something that do some calculations, right? You can also always change that, right? Do something that will make it so you can calculate it, do arithmetic operation on it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to save it. Now, this one is very important. This one I want to create next is how this is related to the, so I'm going to call this, say, I think I call it this student name in the other one. So I'm going to call it that way too. All right. This is where I'm going to say, okay, I want this to be a lookup column. In other words, the column, if I want to add a student, if I want to add a course for a student, the student must have been registered already. In other words, it's got to be in the student table. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call it lookup. So once I do that, they say which table am I relating this to? Because it's given then I will say, call this, I can say require, but so what I'm doing, it definitely has to be business required because you want student, definitely, but business recommended. So business required depends, but you don't want to put as optional, but it's always good to have it as requirement, right? Because you are creating something, because you are relating them, right? You must. Okay, so then I'm going to create it. I'm going to look for the table, which is T student, right? Which is this one, right? This is the table I'm relating that to, right? So I'm going to save it because I'm relating to that table and it's creating that, all right? So now you can see that it's a lookup. It's telling me here, this is a lookup table. And if you go to that created table now, let's start doing something about we're going to start doing something with it, right? I'm not publishing, but I just want to show you. This is showing me all what I needed there. So I'm going to the table there and hit my customs. So you can see that this is the T student, this is the T, so these two tables are related. If I click on this, it should show me then I can start adding data, right? The course name, let's say physics, right? I remember it gave me all kinds of stuff. It didn't show me so in order to get this, I want to open this up so I can say, okay, I want to put course number, course section. I'm not going to click on the other ones. So what I want to display definitely is semester, and I can also show what else do I want to show, like year that is there, and the student name, and this one I wanted to display, remember. So you can see, let's try to save and see what happened. Now it gave me this. The course number, remember, is should be automatic. The T course name, like I'm gonna say physics, and course session PHY dash 1001, that's what I call it. The semester says spring, right? Then the year is 2026, and I'm going to this so I can end. Now this one is a lookup field. You can see provides me with a name to use for this registration, right? So let's say we put in this person. So you can see now that because it's a lookup field, it's going to display. And the reason it was able to do that was because I was able to show, if I, you see, yeah, that is how I have to, if I say business required, right, then definitely, or recommended or it's required, and it's going to pick it up. And you can see, I mean, you'll be able to put data there. And this is actually what you need, you want to do. This is how I was able to create, bring them back up here again, was able to relate them together. Now I can go through this. And so that is how I was able to relate them. Otherwise, well, I won't be able to pick them up because I want to list them. I want to register the student. As I mentioned that, creating a course screen is going to take a little bit of time. And we're going to do the first screen first because we're going to be using this table. All right. So, and that, let me pause now, and then I'll come back in a minute. All right, as I said, now it's time to start developing our application. So I'm going to click an app here to display here. So we're going to create a new app, right? So the couple of things they say start with page design, start with Copilot, start with template, all of that. But we are starting with data, right? And it's going to ask us to come with data. So I'm going to click on this. So it gave me all of this, select from existing table or create a new table or connect to external data. Now, when you create something like in SharePoint list, you can connect to it and using this, but we're selecting from existing table that we have in our Dataverse. Remember that I was actually showing you how to create your table, how this stuff, but since I already created this table, we're going to be using what we have, the table that we have already, that which is called Send, because we're going to be developing an app that will be using the table that we already have, right? So I'm going to say click on this, and it provides me with the table that I can use. Remember, the one that I have is course, right? I'm going to be looking for my course table, right? So you can see I have a whole bunch of, remember, this is the last one we created, and I created something here that I cost, because somewhere I was trying to do some little bit of practice, but we're going to be using this, right? This is what we're going to use. So now I'm going to select it, all right? Again, now I was choosing course there. You can see course, one of the table, student, remember, student. Oh, let me do that. Student, now it provides me with this one, right? So select that, and I asked it to create the app. Remember, as I mentioned, we're not going to create the course on screen because I want to, it takes a little bit longer to explain, and I want to do it independent, like such that you'll be able to focus on this. Remember, we have already created a table, which I call T student. And the reason for I did that was to ensure that I do not override what I have here. So I'm going to click create app, and it's going to come up with it's doing that, creating it, right? And it's loading because I presented, and it's going to see it's been added there. It's giving me the message and skip. See, it gave me what I would need already, like student. It gave me this screen, and it's up to me to start changing them. So what do I call this? I can make some change. Look at on the side, you have properties where you click on each element. On the left side here, we say where you click this thing here to show you everything. Like the first one is the student screen. Should I call it student screen? I can rename it. I can say right here. I can call it let's see, I can call it I always like to like use any name like a student. It's not ADDR. It just get student. Um, ADDR. That's what I want to call it, right? And I hit enter. So at least that. Oh, it's asked me is saving for quickly. No, I don't want to do that because it asked me about this address thing. That's okay. So anyway, here's our screen student address, right? That they gave me, that is the name I call it. You can see on the screen here. And then this is my container, which is a good to give that me automatically. And one of the things that I need you to see, I want you to see like it, you can see this gallery, right? Look at this one. And I will change this to, I like to give it something I can relate to. So I'm changing that to yeah. This is a convention that I use though. So I use that to, I can just say this. Let me just leave it there so that keep bothering me too much. All right. So you can see here that it gave me that. So now each time I click on this, remember this gallery, right? You can see here. And when we start developing our course screen, you will be see the surprise. We're not going to go through. We're going to go through what we call blank, which we're going to be dropping this by ourselves, and we're going to be doing something that will be a little bit challenging. Now, you can see when you do this, when we look at here, we're searching. It's saying, I need you to look at what we have here. The first time is look at the student name and do order and this to search it. So this is what is happening here. Right now, I don't if I can see this, right? You see, I'm trying to select on the screen. It's become a little bit, so I can look at the body container here and look at the right. You can see thing here. You can see that it makes it easier for me. If you cannot select something from here, then it's better that you go and look at the right container, and then you may decide to say, for example, you want to change the background color here. You can change it to anything here, the background color there. You can do that. You can see how it changes. Let's say you did this. You can see how that is changing there. You can you can change it to any kinds of color you want, right? So let's say, for example, you leave it there and you get and then what about the form, right? When you have that thing, what about the forms, right? Let me click on the form here. And I always like to um, give my thing a name. So here I can come here. I can call it FRM on student ADD. I'm just, right? I can call it that way. So that way, when next time I need, if I'm trying to reference it, I can also lose it like that. You can see how um, then when you run it, right? Let's see, we try to run this. I'm gonna save this, right? And I'm gonna call it let's try to call it um demo. Yeah, let's do that. Now you can see how easy to create that. Now, one thing I want you to understand is this. Let's say I try to run it. I'm gonna make like a canvas size so that it looks a little bit. You can see, but again, um, see how it's changing. The top here is changing everything, but I really want this to be able to see what is. I want to make this color different, so at least I can see something, right? So I'm going to close it, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to again. You can see the form. Remember, always like it's good to always name your form. Okay, always give it a name like here. And I want to change the background color to, say, for example, I'm going to change it to, let me go back here. You can see here. Let's say we change it to something like this. Then you can see how this makes sense now, right? It's looking much better. And you can change it to any color you want. So at least to separate it from what I have there. And you can do this way. You may decide to do this. Let's say, for example, we want to um, change it to look like this, right? And I want to change the background color of this one too, such that it's a little bit, yeah, something like that, or this, right? Yeah, we can do that. We can do that too. And I'm going to save it. So now I can, when I run it, right, I can search for name. I remember all of this that we're going to create when we come to the core system, but we're going to do differently in the sense that, but this is what I want for my first screen. And this, you can click on delete. We're not going to do any, but we're going to look at a whole bunch of things there, right? If I do, I can do search James. You can see how it's doing this. And I don't have to write any code, right? And this is done for me. But when it comes to now, one of the things that we would do, like let me just put something here. I'm going to now come back, right? So you can see that if I want to put something like here, I want to add um, a button that I can use to go to the next screen, right? To the courses screen, right? And I'm looking at here. If you look at the a lot of you look on the side, it gives you all kinds of property. For example, it gives you the font size, this one to the text alignment, and all of this could overflow is hidden. There's all kinds of stuff you can do here, right? And we're not going to be setting any properties here. And look at here, right? Flexible width, right? And I want to do this because I want to add, because I'm trying to put something here, I need more space here. I'm going to push it back again. So if I click this, watch this flexible width, and I do this, You can see how it did. It just moved that. So let's say I go back again. You can see. So what I want to do is I want to add the button here. So it gave me ability to be able to write, to put in some control. So I'm going to come to one of the things that I need to do that I didn't do, right? And because Microsoft is been making some changes for the new controls. So I'm gonna go to settings, and you can look here like this school ordering. I want to use to be sure I can get the modern controls on Teams. So I'm gonna set this on, right? I'm gonna just set that, get out of the way. All right. So now that I have model control, Teams is very important, and so that I can have access to any of these new things that Microsoft is creating. All right. So once I did it right, I want to put a button here. And I'm going to put that button, like I'm going to look at here. You can see, we have all this on this. So I'm going to click this button. You can see how it's, make sure though, before you do this, always make sure that you're in that control. Otherwise, it's going to put your button somewhere else, right? It's going to, let's see if I try to go back. Okay. You can see how it went back to that, right? Then let me go back to, oh, where I was before. Oh, no. So I did something there. All right. So I'm going to where I'm saying flexible width, right? Where's the flexible width here? Let me make sure this one, right? Okay, let me make sure I put it. Let me click that. That's why you got to be careful when you move things around here because you don't want to flexible width here. Okay. So remember now, I'll have to be on this because I want to add a button to this. So again, let me go back there and I'm going to click this. Now it gave me the button. Now I'm going to go back to push it all the way back to where it was before. Before I do that, let's just make a quick change. So what do I call my button here? I can call it BTN. I can give it a name like here. I'm going to call it BTN COURSE. I'm going to do that. That's the name. And what I want it to display, remember now when I click on it, what do I want it to display? Remember, this is BTN course. If I keep going this here, say this is button, then I can call it courses. All right. So that's the text. That is what I wanted to display. It hasn't done anything that I'm going to say, something periodically I like to say, right? So we're not going to do anything with this yet, but let me change this back to the flexible. So we move everything all the way to the side, right? So which would be this one actually. So I have to make it flexible width, right? So I'm going to um, find where's the flexible width? Let's look on this side here. Again, you're going to move this thing up and down to sometimes to see things, right? That's height, and the text alignment is showing there. And so let's see the flexible. You see the flexible width here, right? I'm going to do this. So you can see I move that back there. This is something that because it created for me automatically, and I have to do some juggling things around to be able to do this. So now when I try to run this, you can see it's not doing anything because I have not attached it to anything at all. So, which means when I click this, I need it to be able to bring me record from student table. I mean, they mean to bring me a student table to be able to bring me something from the courses table, right? So with that, and another thing I want you to see here, each of these here, I click here, it tells me I want to display the source from, it's displaying that from the student source, which is given that I'm going to this table, and I'm going to look at the data source info on dot display, which is the students, right? Display the name of the table that I'm taking this from. But you may want to change this to something else. So how will you do that, right? How will you change this to reflect? Then what you can do is make a change here, right? So you say, okay, the text here, I'm going to change it to this. You can put it in a quotation, right? You can call it student. Let me just do this to make sure. Student information system, right? You can do that, and you can save it, and Another thing you can do is right on the side. Why not put in the center, right? Why not put out the center here? So you come back here, you can see on the right side, you have it. Now for this one to bring it up, right? One of the things I want to do is next time you will click on this, right? I want to be able to display the screen, all right? I want to be able to display it. So what I'm going to do, right? And we're not going to do anything more than say I'm going to create a screen, a new screen, but this screen, it won't do anything for now. It won't do anything for now. Yeah, one moment we're going to do is quick screen and then you'll be able to see how this can be displayed. Yeah, remember earlier I mentioned the button, right? We created this button called BTN course, right? And it wasn't doing anything at all, right? If I click on this, it's not doing anything because we're still doing a demo, but we're gonna make it a little bit easier. So the next thing I want to do, I want to create this courses screen where we're not going to implement all of them, but we just want to show you how you can use this to get to. So I'm going to click on this, make sure you're not on top of anything right here, like this on the, just be here on the canvas. Then you say new screen, and I'm going to make it a blank. It's a blank screen, right? So what I'll do here is I'm going to change the name to, let's give it a name. Let's see, students courses, right? So at least let me see. Yeah, student courses would be let me actually add this to that one. Student courses. Yeah. All right. That's the name of it. We'll give it a name. And I want to make sure I just put some background here so that we can, when we're doing our coding, we can see that I'm gonna just give it a background for now. Right? So I'm saving it and I'm gonna put a button on it too to do our demo. We're gonna modify the screen in my next segment, but which is the next time, not today. Particular. So I'm on the screen, I'm gonna click, put something like a button. I'm gonna put the button here and I'm gonna give it a name, right? I will give that button a name. Oh my God, there. We're gonna give that button a name, like for example, we're gonna call it BTN back, right? Button. First letter is just telling me that. Okay, that's the, and I'm gonna put some, then I'm gonna say back here. And I can put an icon on it, right? So like I'm gonna go to the icon here. Like you can see the icon there, say before it. And I can look for, yeah. You see now it says it's not doing anything yet though. So let's go back to the main screen earlier where we're student address. Remember, we want to be able to navigate to that screen. But let me go first. See, it's not doing anything yet, but it will. So I'm clicking on the button now. You can see that I'm selecting on it. And you see on select, what do you want to do when you select this button? Um, or it's asking what do you want to do, right? So what do you want to do? We're gonna create some code, basic code for now, right? At least then before I put it. So I'm going to add say okay navigate, right? We're gonna say um actually I can copy where I wrote it down rather than trying to I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. I can do make it bigger a little bit. So right. So let's try to get to this. Right. On select, I'm going to navigate, say navigate. You see that is given me. Come here. I'm going to the student courses, right? Then we a comma. And I say this screen transition, I want it to fade, right? To fade out. I can use any of this, right? We're going to explain this better in the future, but I don't want to comma here. I'm not going to do that. can say start with saying I need you to get the student that I selected, right? Actually, I'm gonna copy that instead of typing, then I can reopen it up, right? Let me just copy that directly where I had it. So that way, I don't have to keep typing it all the way, so it makes it faster. All right, so let me just do that. And here with 1 second, should be able to get it in a minute. All right. Here is the code. Right. You can see that it's gonna look at what I have there, what is my screen that I've created, right? So this is the code, and it's giving me some the SCR student courses. Then let's look at the name. Okay, just to be sure that SCR student courses. Then we're gonna go back into the app to see where we put that button there, right? So student courses, and now let's say, for example, we try to run the app to see if it works, right? We don't know if it's gonna work yet, so I'm gonna click this. You can see it bring it back. That is the screen. And when I click this, let's go back and check the code to be sure that it's doing exactly what we're looking for. All right. Yeah, here. We haven't put any code there, right? So looking here, we're going to say back. In other words, I need you to return to that screen that you were before. Remember, it's there on select. And I'm going to save it. And let's go back to the main student again, and then we're going to run it. And you see, back to that screen, and it went back. And we're not going to be doing anything today, and we're going to develop this screen, but I just want to have it there. So the next time we're going to start from this point where we have a blank screen where we're going to put something to indicate classes, all of those columns that we have because we're going to, let me bring that up quickly here. Let me just say I close that. We're going to drop some control inside here. I'm going to drop some controls. That controls will be the gallery for courses. And on that little note, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. And